The crimson emergency lights bathed Titan Research Station in an ominous glow as alarms shrieked through the corridors. Dr. Kim Min-ho pressed his back against the cold metal wall, his breath coming in short gasps as heavy footsteps echoed somewhere. In the darkness ahead, "Status report," he whispered into his comm device. "Containment breach in Section 7, came the panicked voice of Security Chief Park Dae-ho. "The Vorthak is loose. 3 guards down. 7 civilians trapped in the habitat." Ring Min-ho's blood ran cold. The Vorthak, a 12-foot-tall nightmare of razor claws, armored hide, and predatory intelligence, was the most feared bioweapon in the galaxy. Its species had been banned by the Galactic Council after they'd wiped out entire colonies with surgical precision. The station shuddered as something massive struck the hull from inside. Min-ho could hear the metal groaning under the impact. 20 years of xenobiology research, and he'd never seen anything like this creature in person. He'd only read the classified reports, watched the grainy footage from Colony 7 before it went dark. "How did it get out?" Min-ho asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Power grid failure in the biocontainment wing," Dae-ho replied, his voice tight with fear. "The electromagnetic barriers went down for exactly 17 seconds. That was all. It needed 17 seconds. Min-ho cursed under his breath. The Vorthak had been waiting, studying the patterns, learning their routines. These creatures weren't just killers. They were strategic thinkers with the patience of a predator and the intelligence of a tactical genius. Down the corridor, he could hear his colleague Dr. Lee Somin calling for her 6-year-old daughter. "Hana, where are you? Please answer me." Somin's voice cracked with desperation. Her daughter had been visiting the station for school break, fascinated by the alien creatures her mother studied. The little girl had spent hours in the observation decks, watching the contained specimens with wide, curious eyes. "I'm moving to Section 5, Min-ho whispered into his comm. "Somin and her daughter are there." "Negative. Stay where you are." Dae-ho's voice was sharp. "The thing is moving through the ventilation system. It's hunting." As if summoned by his words, a low, rumbling growl echoed through the air ducts above. The sound made Min-ho's skin crawl. It was the sound of a predator that knew it had cornered its prey. The station's lights flickered as something heavy moved through the ceiling. Dust and debris rained down from the ventilation grates. Min-ho held his breath, pressing himself deeper into the shadows. "All personnel, this is Commander Reeves," a new voice crackled over the general comm system. "Military backup is en route. Hold your positions and stay quiet. The Vorthak hunts by sound and movement." But even as the words were spoken, Min-ho knew they were in trouble. The creature's roar shook the station's hull again, deeper this time, more confident. It was no longer hiding, it was announcing its presence. Plasma fire erupted from the security team's position 3 sections away. The high-pitched whine of energy weapons filled the air, followed by the distinctive crack of plasma bolts striking armored hide. Then came the screams. "Security Team Alpha is down." Dae-ho's voice was barely audible over the static. The thing took them apart in seconds. It's like it knew exactly where they would be. Min-ho's hands shook as he checked his own weapon, standard-issue plasma pistol that felt pathetically small in his grip. He'd heard the stories about Vorthak hide deflecting military-grade weaponry. What chance did a research station's security force have? The screaming stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow worse than the chaos. In that silence, Min-ho could hear Somin's voice again, closer now, calling for her daughter. "Hana, please, we need to go to the safe room." A child's voice answered, clear and unafraid. "I'm here, Mama. I'm not scared." Min-ho's heart clenched. The little girl had no idea what was hunting them. To her, this was probably just another exciting adventure on the space station where her mother worked. "Evacuation pods are offline." Dae-ho's voice crackled through static. "Main power is failing. We're trapped with this thing." The station shuddered again, and this time Min-ho heard the unmistakable sound of metal tearing. The Vorthak was ripping through the station's infrastructure like paper, creating its own paths through the corridors. Emergency lighting cast dancing shadows on the walls as the creature moved closer. Min-ho could smell something metallic in the air, blood mixed with the acrid scent of burned electronics and torn metal. "It's toying with us," he whispered into his comm. "This isn't random hunting. It's systematic." "What do you mean?" Dae-ho asked. "The power failure. The specific sections it's targeting, it's herding us, driving us towards something. As if to confirm his words, the lights went out completely. In the absolute darkness, Minho could hear the creature moving with purpose, its claws clicking against the metal floor. It knew exactly where it was going. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in that hellish red glow again. And in that moment, Minho saw something that made his blood freeze. The Vorthak's shadow, impossibly large and alien, stretched across the corridor wall just 20 meters away. It was between him and the habitat ring where Somin and her daughter were trapped. Minho closed his eyes, his weapon useless in his trembling hands. They were all going to die. The most dangerous predator in the known galaxy was loose on their station, and there was nowhere to run. The hunt had begun. The transport beam shimmered with blue light as elite Krillian shock troops materialized on Titan Station's main deck. Their battle armor gleamed under the emergency lights, each piece of equipment worth more than most planets' defense budgets. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were the galaxy's finest warriors, bred for combat and enhanced with cybernetic implants. Commander Thexvar stepped forward, his forearms checking weapon systems with practiced efficiency. His scarred face told the story of countless battles, but the 3 parallel marks running down his left cheek were special. Those came from a Vorthak on Kepler Prime 5 years ago. He was one of only 12 beings in the galaxy who had faced a Vorthak in combat and lived to tell about it. "Listen up," he growled to his squad of 8 warriors. "This isn't like the training simulations. Vorthaks learn faster than any AI we've ever built. Every shot you take, every move you make, it's studying you, adapting." The youngest soldier, barely past his first molting, shifted nervously. "Sir, the station reports show this one is larger than standard parameters." "Forget the reports, rookie. When you see it, you'll understand why entire star systems pay tribute just to keep these things away from their borders." The station's hull groaned around them, and through the walls came a sound that made even these hardened warriors pause, a low, intelligent growl that seemed to vibrate through their bones. "Spread out. Neural disruptors on maximum," Thexvar ordered, his primary weapon humming to life. "Remember, aim for the neural clusters behind the head spikes, and whatever you do, don't let it get close." The corridor ahead was a maze of twisted metal and sparking electronics. The Vorthak had been busy, reshaping the station's interior to suit its hunting preferences. Torn bulkheads created perfect ambush points, while damaged lighting cast confusing shadows everywhere. "Motion sensors are picking up something big, Section 7, reported the squad's tech specialist, her voice tight with concentration. "It's not moving randomly. There's a pattern here." Before Thexvar could respond, the Vorthak emerged from the shadows like death incarnate. It moved with liquid grace despite its massive size, each step calculated and precise. The creature stood, nearly 14 feet tall, its armored hide gleaming with an oily sheen that seemed to absorb light. 6 eyes, arranged in pairs along its elongated skull, glowed with cruel intelligence as it studied the new arrivals. This wasn't the mindless beast the training vids had prepared them for. This was a strategic predator that had been playing with the station's defenders for hours, learning their tactics, cataloging their weapons. "Open fire," Thexvar roared. The first volley of neural disruptors struck the creature's hide in perfect formation. 8 beams of concentrated energy, designed to overload any nervous system in the known galaxy, hit their target dead center. The energy dissipated harmlessly across the Vorthak's armored skin, like water rolling off stone. The creature tilted its massive head, and for a terrifying moment Thexvar could swear it was smiling. Those 6 eyes focused on him specifically, as if recognizing the scars on his face, remembering their last encounter. "Switch to plasma rounds," he shouted, but the Vorthak was already moving. The creature launched itself at the squad with impossible speed for something its size. Its claws, each one longer than a Krillian forearm, extended with a metallic whisper. The youngest soldier didn't even have time to scream as those claws punched through his armor like it was made of paper. "Baxon, no!" The tech specialist's cry was cut short as the Vorthak's tail, tipped with bone spikes, swept her legs out from under her. She hit the wall with a sickening crunch. 2 Krillian warriors down in seconds, their advanced armor and years of training meaning nothing against this living weapon. The remaining soldiers opened fire desperately, plasma bolts filling the corridor with deadly light. The Vorthak moved, between the shots like it could see them coming, its body flowing around the energy blasts with unnatural grace. When one plasma bolt did connect, it left only a small scorch mark on the creature's hide. "It's adapting to our weapons," Thexvar shouted into his comm as he retreated, firing controlled bursts. "The thing is analyzing our energy signatures in real time." His remaining squad fell back through the twisting corridors, their disciplined retreat turning into something dangerously close to panic. Behind them, the Vorthak stalked forward at a leisurely pace, no longer in any hurry. It had measured their capabilities and found them wanting. "Command, this is Thexvar," he spoke rapidly into his emergency channel. "Request immediate backup. Heavy weapons, orbital support, whatever you can send. This thing is beyond our current specifications." The reply crackled with static. "Negative on orbital support. Too many civilians still aboard. You need to contain it with what you have." "Contain it?" Thexvar almost laughed at the absurdity. "You didn't contain a Vorthak. You either killed it with overwhelming firepower, or you died trying." The creature's roar echoed through the station again, closer now. It was herding them, driving them toward the habitat ring where the civilians were trapped. Thexvar realized with growing horror that the Vorthak wasn't just hunting, it was setting up a grand finale. In the habitat ring, Dr. Lee Somin held her daughter Hannah close as they huddled with other survivors behind an overturned table. The air recycling system had been damaged, making every breath taste of metal and fear. Around them, 15 other beings from 6 different species pressed, together in desperate silence. Dr. Kim Minho crouched nearby, his plasma pistol shaking in his hands. "The Krillians should have handled it by now," he whispered. "They're the best in the galaxy." "Maybe it got away," suggested Dr. Park Hee-sung, a young researcher whose voice cracked with hope. "Maybe it's gone." That hope died as the sound of plasma fire echoed closer, accompanied by the distinctive battle cries of Krillian warriors. But the cries were growing fewer, more desperate. Hannah looked up at her mother with those dark, curious eyes that had always seen too much. "Mama, why is everyone so scared?" Somin struggled to find words that wouldn't terrify her daughter. "There's a dangerous animal loose on the station, sweetheart, but the soldiers are going to catch it." "Animals aren't dangerous if you're nice." "To them," Hannah said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. "Remember when we found that injured space cat on Luna Station? Everyone said it was mean, but it just needed help." Before Somin could explain that this was very different from a lost pet, the lights in the habitat ring flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in that familiar red glow. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, accompanied by the distinctive whine of plasma weapons firing rapidly. Then, sudden silence. The massive form of the Vorthak filled the doorway like a living nightmare. Its 6 eyes swept the room, cataloguing every hiding spot, every potential victim. When those eyes fixed on the group behind the overturned table, the creature's lips pulled back in what could only be described as anticipation. The hunt was about to reach its bloody conclusion. The Vorthak stepped into the habitat ring, its razor-sharp claws scraping against the metal floor with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Each footstep sent vibrations through the deck plating, and the emergency lights cast its massive shadow across the terrified survivors. 15 beings cowered before it, humans, Krillians, and Zentorians, all reduced to nothing more than helpless prey. Dr. Kim Minho pressed himself against the wall, his plasma pistol forgotten in his trembling hands. The weapon seemed like a child's toy compared to the living nightmare before them. The creature moved with deliberate slowness, savoring the moment. Its 6 eyes swept across the group, cataloguing each face with predatory intelligence. When those glowing orbs fixed on the overturned table where the largest group huddled, the Vorthak's massive head lowered slightly, like a cat preparing to pounce on a mouse. Its maw opened slowly, revealing 3 rows of serrated teeth designed to tear through starship hulls. A low rumble emerged from deep in its throat, not quite a growl, more like the purr of some cosmic engine of destruction. Saliva dripped from its jaws, hissing where it hit the metal floor. Dr. Park Hee-sung whimpered and covered her eyes. The young Zentorian researcher beside her was praying in his native language, the translation device rendering his words as desperate pleas to ancient gods. The Vorthak took another step forward, and everyone could smell it now, the metallic scent of blood mixed with something alien and wrong. This was the smell of death itself, refined over millions of years of evolution into the perfect killing machine. Commander Thexvar, bleeding from a gash across his forehead, raised his weapon with shaking hands. His remaining squad members flanked him, but they all knew it was hopeless. Their neural disruptors had failed, their plasma rounds barely scratched the creature's hide, and their combat training meant nothing against a predator that could adapt to any strategy in real time. "On my mark," Thexvar whispered, knowing it was futile but unable to give up. A warrior's death was better than cowering in the shadows. That's when 6-year-old Hannah broke free from her mother's grip. The little girl had been watching the creature, with those dark, curious eyes that had always seen wonder where others saw danger. While everyone else saw death incarnate, she saw something different, something that reminded her of the strays she'd fed on Lunar Station, the injured animals her mother had helped heal in their small apartment garden. "Hannah, no!" Somin screamed, lunging forward to grab her daughter, but the child was already moving with that fearless determination that only children possess. The Vorthak froze mid-stride, its massive head tilting as it watched this tiny human approach. Every survival instinct in the room screamed that this was madness, that the child was walking directly into the jaws of death. But Hannah showed no fear, no hesitation. Her small feet made tiny clicking sounds on the metal floor as she walked steadily toward the towering predator. She moved like she was approaching a nervous puppy in the station's pet quarters, not the most dangerous creature in known space. "Hannah, get back here!" Minho called out desperately, but his voice seemed to come from another world. The child stopped just 3 feet from the creature's massive claws that could slice her in half with the smallest movement. She tilted her head back to look up at the Vorthak, and for a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and child studied each other. The Vorthak's 6 eyes focused on this small being with growing confusion. Its enhanced brain, designed to process threats and calculate kill probabilities, struggled to categorize what it was seeing. This tiny creature showed no signs of fear, no stress hormones, no fight-or-flight responses. Instead, there was something else, something that triggered memories buried deep in its genetically modified consciousness. Hannah looked up at the creature with the complete confidence that only a child could possess, the absolute certainty of someone who had never doubted that she would be obeyed. She had that same expression when she told her toys to behave, when she commanded the family cat to come for dinner, when she scolded the maintenance robots for being too loud during her nap time. "Sit," she said firmly, her clear voice cutting through the silence like a laser through the darkness. The word hung in the air like a physical force, reverberating through the habitat ring with impossible weight. The Vorthak's 6 eyes widened simultaneously, its pupils dilating as something ancient stirred in its consciousness. Its muscles trembled as conflicting instincts warred within its enhanced nervous system. The kill command screamed at it to strike, to tear this insolent creature apart. But something deeper, something that predated its artificial enhancements, responded to that simple word with overwhelming compulsion. Then, impossibly, the most dangerous predator in known space slowly lowered its haunches to the floor. The sound. It made armor scraping against metal, joints creaking under massive weight, was the only noise in the habitat ring. Every being present held their breath, unable to process what they were witnessing. Commander Thexvar's weapon clattered from his nerveless fingers, the plasma rifle hitting the deck with a metallic clang that seemed to echo forever. His scarred face went pale beneath his helmet, and his forearms hung limp at his sides. Around the station, every comm channel fell silent as the unprecedented event was witnessed by dozens of species. In the command center, Captain Reeves stared at his monitors in disbelief. On the nearby Krillian warship, Admiral Korvex dropped his ceremonial battle blade. Even the automated system seemed to pause, as if the station's AI couldn't process the data it was receiving. Hannah smiled, the bright, innocent smile of a child who had just proven that the universe made perfect sense, and reached out her small hand. Her fingers, tiny and soft, touched the creature's armored snout with the same gentleness she showed when petting the station's therapy animals. The Vorthak's 6 eyes closed simultaneously, and a sound emerged from deep in its chest, a low, rumbling vibration that every being in the galaxy would have sworn was impossible. The most feared bioweapon in existence was purring like a contented house cat. "Good boy," Hana whispered, her voice filled with the kind of pure affection that had tamed wolves into dogs, turned wild horses into companions, and somehow reached across the void of space to touch something primal in the heart of a living weapon. The galaxy had just witnessed the impossible, and nothing would ever be the same. Within hours, Titan Station transformed from a scene of terror into the most important research facility in the galaxy. Transport ships arrived every few minutes, disgorging teams of xenobiologists, military experts, and Galactic Council representatives. The docking bays that had been sealed during the crisis now buzzed with activity, as beings from across known space gathered to witness the impossible. The Vorthak sat quietly in the habitat ring like an enormous, deadly pet. Its massive form had settled into a relaxed position, 6 eyes following Hana's every movement as she played with her toy spaceship nearby. The creature that had terrorized an entire station now watched the little girl with protective devotion that defied everything science understood about its species. Dr. Yoon Ji-hoon stepped off the latest transport, his reputation preceding him through the crowd of researchers. As the galaxy's leading expert on Vorthak biology, he had studied these creatures for 30 years, dissected their remains, analyzed their hunting patterns, and written the definitive guide on Vorthak combat tactics. Nothing in his extensive research had prepared him for what he saw. "Status report," he demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief as he approached Dr. Lee Somin. "The creature has been docile for 6 hours," Somin replied, still staying close to her daughter. "It won't eat, won't move more than a few feet from Hana, and shows defensive behaviors when anyone approaches too quickly." Ji-hoon stared at his datapad, scrolling through readings that contradicted decades of established science. "This is impossible. According to every study, every battlefield report, every analysis we've ever conducted, Vorthaks are incapable of pack bonding. They're pure predators, engineered killing machines with no social instincts whatsoever." Dr. Choi Sun-hee, the station's head geneticist, rushed forward with her scanner still beeping with fresh data. Her hands shook with excitement as she showed Ji-hoon the results. "The genetic scans tell a different story. Look at this. Buried deep in their DNA, there are dormant sequences, companion animal behaviors that have been suppressed for millennia." Ji-hoon grabbed the scanner, his eyes widening as he processed the information. "These gene sequences, they're not random mutations. This is deliberate genetic architecture." "Exactly," Sun-hee nodded rapidly. "Someone engineered these suppressions into their DNA. The bonding instincts aren't gone, they're just sleeping." Around them, other researchers were conducting their own tests. Dr. Park Jae-hyun ran neural scans that showed the Vorthak's brain chemistry had completely changed in the presence of the human child. Stress hormones that should have been elevated during captivity were instead at baseline levels. The creature's neural patterns showed contentment, an emotion that wasn't supposed to exist in Vorthak consciousness. "We need to go deeper," Ji-hoon announced to the assembled team. "Run a complete genetic archaeology scan. I want to know where these creatures really came from." The results took 12 hours to process, and when they came back they changed everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the galaxy. "The Vorthaks weren't natural creatures," Sun-hee announced to the packed conference room filled with representatives from dozens of species. "They were the products of genetic manipulation by an ancient civilization. The base species, the original animal they were created from, were pack hunters, but not predators in the way we understand them." She activated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional model of Vorthak DNA. The original species were companions, pack animals with strong bonding instincts, loyalty patterns, and protective behaviors, like Earth's wolves, but more intelligent, more socially complex. Admiral Korvex, the Krillian representative, leaned forward in his chair. You're saying someone turned guard dogs into bioweapons? Not just someone, Dr. Kim Minho added, having spent hours analyzing the genetic markers. This level of genetic manipulation is beyond anything we've seen. Whoever did this had technology that makes our most advanced bioengineering look like children playing with blocks. Jihoon nodded grimly. We are calling them the progenitors. This civilization existed long before any of our current species achieved spaceflight. They enhanced these companion animals, turning them into living weapons while burying but not eliminating their bonding instincts. But why leave those instincts intact at all? Asked Dr. Yoon Mirai, a behavioral specialist who had been studying the Vorthak's interactions with Hana. If you're creating a perfect weapon, why include a potential weakness? Maybe they didn't consider it a weakness, Sun He suggested. Maybe they wanted their creations to be controllable by their masters. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Somewhere in the galaxy's ancient past, a civilization had created the most feared bioweapons in known space, but they had built in a control mechanism. The human child somehow triggered those dormant protocols, Jihoon explained, his voice filled with awe. But that raises the biggest question of all. How? Humans have never encountered the progenitor civilization. Our species evolved on Earth, millions of light years from the nearest progenitor ruins. That's when Sun He dropped the bombshell that would reshape galactic history. Human pheromones, vocal patterns, even our body language, they match the progenitor genetic markers perfectly. She paused, letting the words sink in. The match isn't close, it's not similar. It's identical down to the molecular level. The silence in the room was deafening. Representatives from species that had existed for millions of years stared at. The humans present with new understanding. What are you saying? Captain Reeves asked quietly. I'm saying that it's as if humans and the progenitors shared common ancestry, Sun He replied. Either humans are descendants of the progenitors or... She hesitated, the implications too vast to fully comprehend. Or humans are the progenitors, Jihoon finished, his voice barely above a whisper. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just another young species that had recently achieved spaceflight. They might be the inheritors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization. A civilization that had created bioweapons so powerful they were still shaping galactic politics millions of years later. In the habitat ring, little Hana continued playing with her toys while the most dangerous predator in known space watched over her like a devoted guardian. Neither the child nor the creature understood that they had just proven humanity's connection to the ancient masters of the galaxy. The universe had just become a much smaller and much more dangerous place. 5 years later, Lieutenant Hana Lee stood on the bridge of the GSV Harmony, her hands steady on the tactical display as she watched 6 massive forms move through the ship's cargo bay. The Vorthaks that had once been the galaxy's most feared predators now responded to her every gesture with the loyalty of devoted companions. Alpha Team, prepare for deployment, she spoke into her comm, her voice carrying the quiet authority that came from years of working with creatures that could tear apart starships with their bare claws. The lead Vorthak, whom she had named Guardian, lifted his massive head and fixed all 6 eyes on her through the bridge's viewing port. The creature that had terrorized Titan Station was now twice the size he'd been as a wild beast, his armored hide bearing ceremonial markings that identified him as the first of his kind to be bonded with a human. Target acquired, Hana announced, to the bridge crew. Pirate vessel Shadowfang, heavily armed with stolen military hardware. They've been raiding merchant convoys in this sector for 3 months. Captain Kang Min-soo nodded from his command chair. Standard suppression protocol. Lieutenant, try to take them alive. The Galactic Council wants to question them about their weapons suppliers. Through the main view screen, they could see the pirate vessel attempting to flee toward the asteroid field. The Shadowfang was a converted military cruiser, bristling with plasma cannons and torpedo tubes. Under normal circumstances, it would take a full squadron of peacekeeping ships to subdue such a target, but these weren't normal circumstances. Deploying Vorthak teams now, Hana said, activating the ship's specialized launch system. The cargo bay doors opened silently in the vacuum of space, and 6 forms shot out like living missiles. The Vorthax had been equipped with personal shield generators and short-range thrusters, allowing them to operate in the void between ships. What had once been a limitation, their need for atmosphere, had been solved by human engineering working in harmony with progenitor biotechnology. Guardian led the formation, his enhanced senses tracking the pirate ship's weak points with predatory precision. But instead of going for a killing strike, he and his pack moved with surgical accuracy toward the ship's weapon systems and engines. "Direct neural link established," reported the ship's communications officer, a young Zentorian who still seemed amazed by the technology. "We're receiving real-time data from the Vorthak pack." On the bridge screens they could see through Guardian's eyes as he landed on the pirate ship's hull. His claws, once used only for killing, now served as precision tools that could disable electronics without causing hull breaches. Within minutes, the Shadowfang's weapons were offline, its engines dead, and its crew trapped inside a ship that had become their prison. "This is Captain Kang Minsu of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force," came the broadcast to the disabled vessel. "Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." The response was immediate. "We surrender. Don't let those things inside our ship." Hana smiled, remembering that day on Titan Station when she'd first reached out to touch Guardian's armored snout. The little girl who had seen a lonely creature in need of a friend had grown into a young woman who commanded the respect of beings across the galaxy. "Mission successful," Captain Kang reported to Fleet Command. The pirates surrendered without a fight. The Vorthak's reputation precedes them, it was true. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the human-bonded Vorthaks. Pirates, smugglers, and raiders had learned that facing these reformed predators meant certain capture. The creatures were too fast to outrun, too smart to outsmart, and too loyal to their human partners to be bribed or threatened. But more than that, they had become symbols of something greater. Every successful mission proved that the most dangerous weapons could be transformed into protectors, that fear could become hope, and that the bonds between species could transcend the barriers of biology and evolution. Guardian and his pack are returning to the ship, the communications officer reported. All teams accounted for, no injuries. As the Vorthaks returned to their specialized quarters aboard the Harmony, Hana made her way to the ship's memorial wall. There, among the names of fallen peacekeepers, was a simple plaque that read, "In memory of the guards who fell on Titan Station, and in honor of the creature who showed us that every monster can become a guardian." Setting course for the Andromeda. "Research station," she announced as she returned to the bridge. "We've received reports of another progenitor creation responding to human presence." The news had been spreading throughout the galaxy for months. Deep in the ruins of ancient worlds, creatures that had slept for millennia were awakening at the approach of human explorers. Each discovery revealed new aspects of the progenitor legacy and humanity's connection to it. Captain Kang activated. The hyperspace drive and the stars outside shifted into the familiar streaks of faster-than-light travel. "What kind of creature this time?" "Unknown," Hana replied, reviewing her mission briefing. "The archaeological team on Kepler-7 found something in a stasis vault. They said it responds to human voices, but they haven't been able to establish contact." As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Hana reflected on the changes the last 5 years had brought. Across the galaxy, similar teams operated under human command. Children who had grown up with reformed Vorthaks now served as handlers for other progenitor creations. The Academy on Luna had become the training ground for a new generation of human-alien partnerships. Other species had superior technology that could reshape matter at the quantum level. They had greater physical strength that could crush starships with their bare hands. Some possessed advanced psychic abilities that could read minds across solar systems. But humans possessed something unique, the ability to see the companion hidden within the monster, to find the loyal heart beneath the weaponized exterior. It was a gift that seemed to bridge the vast gulf between species, turning enemies into allies and weapons into protectors. The galaxy had changed because of that gift. Where once there had been fear and isolation, now there was cooperation and understanding. Humanity's expansion continued not through conquest or colonization, but through friendship and partnership. In her quarters that night, Hana looked out at the passing stars and thought about all the progenitor creations still waiting to be discovered. Guardian lay sleeping nearby, his massive form taking up most of the room's floor space. Even in sleep, his 6 eyes occasionally opened to check on her, the bonding instincts that had been buried for millions of years now fully awakened. Somewhere in the depths of space, in hidden vaults on forgotten worlds, ancient weapons stirred in their sleep. They waited in stasis chambers and genetic archives, in the ruins of a civilization that had spanned the galaxy long before any current species had learned to look up at the stars. They were waiting for the children of Earth to find them, to speak the words that would set them free, to offer the friendship that would transform them from instruments of war into guardians of peace. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all was the simple truth that Hana had discovered as a 6-year-old child. Every creature, no matter how fearsome, carried within it the capacity for love. And in a galaxy where love could tame the fiercest predators, humanity had found its true calling among the stars. The